Welcome everyone, Simon here from the Whales of Wall Street. We have an XDC video here today for you all. Before we go into the topic details, don't forget to smash that subscribe button if you haven't done so already, and check out the other videos on the channel after this one. Loads of different topics, discussions, assets. If there's not one that we are covering and you want us to, let us know in the comments below. We do have the People's Crypto episode this weekend, and we will indeed be chucking out, I think, a few actually. There's some really good ones that people have been recommending over the last few days. So looking forward to researching those and getting some ideas or potentially some new ones to add to the portfolio. We'll have to have a look at that for sure. Let's go into the first topic. The first one being Stasis, based in Malta. Apparently the largest euro-backed stablecoin. Didn't know that. But these guys are basically integrated now with the XDC network. There's going to be a massive competition, guys, for loads more stable coins, and especially with the integration of things like CBDCs moving forwards. It's going to be really interesting next few years, in my opinion. Just before we go into a bit more detail about this one, it is also worth mentioning that Stasis did a similar integration with XRP Ledger, XRPL. Yet again, another top level DLT, distributed ledger technology, that Stasis are trying to use to move forwards with its use case and utility for the rest of the world. I think it's very interesting. But yeah, again, another stable coin, guys. I think there's going to be a lot of these over the next few years, as I said. Honestly, like hand on heart, I think this could be a big, massive catalyst, not particularly just this topic. I'm talking about the generalization of CBDCs, the new monetary system, etc. This could be the next big catalyst for the huge bull run. And I do think that will lead into 2025. I have the deadline of November 2025 in regards to when the new RTGS system is supposed to be integrated fully around the world, and with all the banking systems and existing financial systems, right? So we'll have to see how that develops. But yeah, I think it's very interesting. These guys, actually, Stasis, I believe, have been around for a few years. And I've been looking at their team and everything like that. It's very interesting to see this, and I think, as I said, they're really utilizing some of the best top level projects or networks, or indeed blockchains as well, and systems to use and power their stablecoin. Of course, XDC boasts a phenomenal amount of transactions per second, albeit that maybe hasn't been fully tested with the big massive network capacity yet, but that is what they're boasting right now. And we've seen that similarly with XRP's, Ripple, etc., and many others too. So this is going to be interesting. I'm going to follow this quite closely as time goes by, not just for XDC's perspective, but in generalization of Stasis. I think it's going to be interesting to see how they compete with other stable coins that are already out there and ones that are perhaps going to come in the fruition over the next few years. Let us know what you think about this in the comments. I think this is a good move. But yeah, I don't want to put out too much detail there because I haven't fully researched yet the Stasis implication versus their competitors. So what I might do actually is a video on stablecoins in general. I think most people know what a stablecoin is. This is where it's basically backed by a reserve currency, whether it be dollar or euro, whatever it might be. But the fact of the matter is it's stable, hence the word stable, right? It's like something that you could add your money into or convert an asset into, and it wouldn't fluctuate. I mean, unless, of course, liquidity absolutely disappeared with the reservation aspect of a currency. We have seen that on a couple of occasions where maybe USDT dropped a relative amount, or indeed in general the real world's money. I say the real world, talk about fiat money. We've seen the complications of that as well. But generally speaking, it tends to devise itself as a level-headed peg. That means that you won't get any of that volatility, as it were, unless you look at the really minute detail. We're talking about like 1% or less than 1%. On a daily basis. So let's keep an eye on that. I'll do some updates over the next few days and weeks on this. The next point I wanted to make was about a IFTA. Okay, so the IFTA has announced the release of uniform rules for transferable electronic payment obligations, URTEPO. Crazy. This will cover electronic payment obligations, digitalization, and accompanying changes in and then it transfers over here. Completely missed out the rest of the sentence, a bit weird. So yeah, this is very much about the formation of digitalization of both messaging I don't mean messaging like text or anything. I'm talking about messaging in finance, the application of someone sending money to one other person and it being verified, it processed, and it's put onto the existing ledger system, right? We use things like Swift and Bax, etc. right now, but this is going to be more in the framework of digitalization and the utilization of blockchain, as we covered many times for a long time now. We talked about CBDCs, we talked about the RTGS system replacing the existing one, and how that's going to work. But digitalization also works with very heavily in trade finance, of course, but also works domestically and from an SME level, pretty much all the way through. And it's quite amazing, really, that in this day and age, that majority of companies still are utilizing paper-orientated invoicing, processing, verification, documentation, all of these things, right? And this is how it's going to transfer across to the digital aspect using blockchain, using the power of blockchain. We're talking about like the verification process being sped up, being documented, verified permanently on a chain, being able to potentially be upgraded. We've seen, like with the video recently on Casper, how they look to try and upgrade smart contracts as you go by. I think that would be integrated across the board, to be honest, on a lot of projects, to be honest, as time goes by. But you will see this further development, and again, pointing around that whole circle about the catalyst of the next bull run. These are kind of the big incremental things I think they're going to push it. As more and more people get more aware of these new systems and how finance is changing to digital, more people get inquisitive about like, oh, what's power in this? I want to invest in it. I want to make some money out of it. Sometimes a bit too late. I mean, we saw with like NFTs in the metaverse last year, right? How many people jumped in without even knowing what an NFT was? They just thought it was pieces of art. They didn't really understand it. But at the end of the day, yes, the market went up amazingly and dropped down significantly over the last year. The fact of the matter is more and more people are aware of it. And I think more people are aware of digital aspects anyway. When they start coming into further development, that's going to be a similar pattern. That's how I see it. But other things about digitalization of documentation, we talked about DDocs. Lloyds Bank actually do this, which is quite interesting. So they use, Lloyds Bank use this Digital Negotiable Instruments Initiative, which that's crazy words, right? So this counts the launch of the electronic payment undertaking template wording and the DDoC specifications among its successes. This is part of the IFTA's framework that's moving forward. So Lloyds Bank is a case study and usage of this. As you can see here, the digital note solution has potential to reduce transaction times from several days to a matter of hours. Now, it's just not just about finance, guys. We talk about the housing market, real estate market, how that can be reduced in terms of timeframes of buying and selling houses and property in general. We think about like the money laundering checks, land registry checks, your finance checks, everything. But to have it all on blockchain, literally data, everything data-wise on there, you have got something that will speed up things significantly. Saving time, saving money, cost efficiency, everything, energy reductions, usage reduction, but also, yes, there is the argument that it might remove more people out of work, but this is just an evolution of where we're going right now in the world. You have to kind of like reskill, and it sounds sad, but like I've come to a lot of realizations over the last sort of 5-10 years as to how the world's going to be reflective. And we look at blockchain technology and crypto and digital currency. At the end of the day, we're investing in pretty much most of the demise of society and people in general, right, as a human, as what we've done sort of traditionally over decades, centuries, maybe even millennia, maybe coming to a bit of a halt soon as your AI technology and development of digitalization continues. So it's really interesting to me to see that development. But for sure, as I said, this is one of the interesting case studies of Lloyds Bank using a DDoC scenario and an infrastructure to progress itself, to make itself faster, to become a more efficient bank, not just for itself, but for the customers that it services to as well. And I mentioned also in previous videos, for example, with DDoCs and digitalization of documentation in general, things like tax. HMRC here in the UK is only just switching really to a non-paperless system. And that includes the way that we upload our tax implications as well. So there's going to be a lot of things where you can't avoid paying tax anymore. Everything will be scrutinized automatically. Everything will be calculated automatically based on the algorithm of everything that you do. You would have to insinuate that your job is then connected to the system automatically and digitalized to the point where it knows what you're supposed to be doing. Hence why we have PAYE here in the UK, pay as you earn, trying to basically reduce the amount of self-employment and things like that, sole trader, etc. because of the amount of money that's potentially lost into the system, or clever accounting, whatever it might be. And this is one of those things that is just going to be continuously happening, especially with HMRC. We see a lot of less people working in the departments now. It's all becoming more automated, and this is pretty much how the banking system's been, right, for the last 5 years or so. Look how many banks have disappeared physically. Banks themselves haven't disappeared. Now we've got chat robots and all this nonsense, and I'm getting a bit annoyed. You try and get some help and you're just talking to this AI thing that doesn't even know the answers, or you just go around in circles and you end up just throwing the phone on the floor or whatever, and then just getting on with your day and not getting the solution sorted. So that will probably improve anyway at some point, but the point being is that everything's going this way. So when we look back from an investment perspective, looping this back into a circle, is that, well, we want to be involved or in trading or owning assets that are powering this kind of thing, that are integrated within the frameworks. And XDC work heavily with IFTA, especially through Andre Kasterman, of course, in this aspect here. But yes, the XDC Foundation is playing a massive role in the initiatives of this innovation and this criteria and framework that they are building. So just keep an eye on it, really. I think someone mentioned before, actually, XDC doesn't have any integrations with banking. Well, it doesn't have it directly, but it's certainly operating and utilizing its framework within things like this. So that's where you've got to do the dot connecting, guys. It's not necessarily saying Lloyds Bank are going to be using XDC network. They're going to be using a few different networks, trust me, because that's how blockchain will work. The interoperability factor. They're probably using part of R3 Corda and Quant as well. But the fact of the matter is, all of these projects, big top projects, are integrating their systems into existing ones like this. And the IFTA have big, massive responsibilities to formulate that framework and include it. Here in the UK, for example, this very cool article here, it was made on the 12th of October. It's just recently been edited slightly. The Electronic Trade Documents Bill. This is an important factor as well, to make sure that we integrate, not just in finance, but across the board, the digitalization of everything. More companies here in London, and I know this for a fact because I know a lot of the CEOs and everything, they are integrating companies like Cardano, like Ripple, for example, for smart contractability, to reduce time, to reduce cost, to increase economy, speed, growth, everything. So this is where it comes in. With all, as I said, many videos now. I don't know how many more times I can explain this, but the fact of the matter is, everything's changing towards this. And we've got to be identifying, really, in my opinion, the projects that are powering this. And isn't it convenient? I mentioned about November 2025. The IOE and IT is already helping deliver the government's 2025 UK border strategy. 2025 is going to be a huge year, guys. Trust me. It's going to be very interesting to see this development in the next few years. And it's important to take advantage of these kind of markets that we're seeing right now. In fact, on that point, let's jump into the chart to have that conversation a bit further. So this is XDC. Currently trading around the 2 cent mark. What are we looking out for here? Well, personally, I do actually now have a buy order back down here at 1 cent. That's not saying that XDC is 100% going down to this area, but the reason I put it in there, by the way, I've changed from the KuCoin data chart here to Bitfinex because it has longer data. I don't know why I didn't use this one before. But if you look back here, we track back to, let's get rid of this advert, track back here to 2020. Right, so we're not far off these areas. Currently, we are messing about with this area at 2 cents, as I mentioned, which indicates a mirrored effect back here in February 2021. This is kind of the last time, really, that we're around in these particular regions. At that time, it did go past that and became a bit of a small support mechanism. But then we had the massive uprun in 2021, didn't we, for a number of reasons. And in general, everyone was excited about crypto and digitalization, and XDC in general as well, I think, was becoming more popular and more awareness towards it as an asset class. But if we take away, and bear in mind, guys, so I got some squares to draw in here. Let me just find my rectangle. While I do that, let's just talk about this in a bit more detail. So what I'm talking about is this area here. Between, I'm just going to draw a rectangle, I can't even find the box. So here we go. So where we are right now is roughly around this marker here. And then this is the next level down on the fib retracement. This also levels out with some of the top level areas that we saw in the top of impulse moves. So if you think about the Elliott wave scenario is on the second and third waves, or sorry, the second and fourth waves, we're seeing these top levels. And this is where that fib retracement level matches up if we take the lowest points here and some of the most recent high points here as well. So what we can tell from this is that if we start hitting this area, and if you look at yesterday or 2 days ago, XDC nearly dropped down to that sort of 1.8 cent mark, nearly touching back onto this fib level. I think that we're going to come back to this area at some point. We have to, because going back to this point, this is a huge gap. There is no support here. And we need to find support to make sure that XDC moves upwards without any catalytic events coming into fruition and then dropping things significantly. We've seen it time and time again, right? We see those huge drops in one day sometimes, but sometimes over a course of a few days. So we have to get that support somewhere. Right now, we're testing this area only once so far, and this is the first time we've been in this area, as I said, since February 2021 last year. We have to identify this and acknowledge that. So what we need to do now is confirm this area's support. It could potentially be an absolute swing around over the next few months, but generally speaking, we're in a bear market. We're arguably in a winter market. There's still crazy things going on around the world. I can't see anything moving up anytime soon. So this is why I've put a purchase order back down here at just over 1 cent. I never put them on at a rounded number. That would indicate where we did have those top levels. But of course it could bounce in and out of that. But I always like to try and remove a bit of risk there. And I've gone for just over that. 1.2 cents is my next XDC buy order. And that'd be absolutely fantastic to accumulate XDC at a cent less than it is today, because I think that's a huge opportunity for massive accumulation for a project that is absolutely huge and got a mega future in front of it. You can see already here, hitting those near 20 cent marks, how much room we've got to grow already from that point where we're at today to there, let alone beyond that 20 cent mark. So there's a really massive opportunity for some big X's here, maybe even 100 times X minimum in the next bull run. We'll have to see. But that is my philosophy around why I'm looking at these lower areas. I am still DCAing and buying manual with XDC, but I can assure you and be honest about this in the sense that I'm only buying based on small manual intakes. My big chunk here is already in a limit order, where I wanted to get the big chunk of it, but I still had the manual payments to make in between them. So as we're on the low impulse moves here, in terms of the waves, we've already kind of like in towards our fifth wave really. So this is where I'm trying to anticipate the mini waves in between that, where I'm DCAing and then getting to that bottom point, which could identify over maybe even the next few months, getting down to these areas potentially, would indicate finally to see us getting extra support at these levels, tick those off, and then we can start coming back up again. Again, that's not to say that XDC is a terrible project. We just have to look at the data here, guys. Okay. From a manual perspective of purchasing, the reason I'm DCAing at the moment particularly is the 14-day and the 28-day are both under 40 right now. We're in a bit of a selling pattern, as we can see here with XDC, right? So for me, these are great buy points personally. Yesterday would have been even better, of course, at 20 and 28-day on the RSIs of 14 and 28-day respectively. But yeah, this day chart is looking very applicable to me to get XDC at lower price points. This is where it's going now, guys. Honestly, I think to down these areas. Let us know what you think about that in the comments below. That's what I'm thinking. The year is showing a minus 70 negative at the moment still. So there's great room for growth and opportunity moving forward in the uprise. But I do think we need to really get this out of the way first before we start going back up again. Irrespective of big announcements and things like that with XDC, you're going to get some short-term spikes, but the world is in a recession, guys. We have to understand this and accept this. And I'm waiting for that big chunk of BTC, Bitcoin, going still sub 10,000. I honestly still think that's going to happen. It sounds a bit negative, but it's an opportunity. I can't really wait for that to happen. I think it's going to be exciting and an opportunity to get things that you maybe missed out on a couple of years ago. We're back at these stages again, guys. It's crazy. It's like the great reset of crypto. And we're here today to be excited about it. This is where money is made. So guys, that's the leaving point here. They're my positions of buying with XDC moving forward. We'll see how these play out, but let us know in the comments below about XDC in general. Are you holding, buying, selling? What are your thoughts about the future of XDC? And I'm really interested in this IFTA progression. We'll keep you guys informed of that as time goes by. But until then, thanks for watching this one. We'll see you in the next XDC video. Take care. Bye-bye.